Good morning, family and friends. Jehovah Jireh, Genesis 22. Abraham has now discovered that God is truly his provider. He has found the ram in the thicket. His hand has been stayed from sacrificing his son Isaac. And now it's a lesson for us. Abraham was willing to give up his son Isaac so that he could be within the full will of God. My question today is, what are we willing to give up? What are we giving up so that we can be in full alignment with our Jehovah Jireh, God, our provider? Before we can know that Jehovah is Jireh, before we can experience God as our provider, we must be willing fully to obey him. Maybe you've never experienced God's provision because you've never really had any needs, or rather you don't think you have any needs. Many of us are like that. We think we have life all figured out and don't recognize that we are nothing without the provision of God. If we want God to provide, we must be prepared for him to do it. We don't have to fully understand in order to surrender, but we do need to fully trust him. It's like the story of a house on fire. A little girl was trapped in her upstairs bedroom, and as she leaned out the window, her father, who was on the ground, said, "Jump, and I will catch you." The little girl was afraid, and as the flames closed in on her, she replied, "But I can't see you." To which the father shouted, "That's okay, because I can see you." She jumped to safety, not because of what she could see, but because she trusted the voice of her father, who told her to jump and declared to her, "Although you can't see me, I can see you." Jehovah Jireh. It was in her letting go of what she could not see and obeying the voice of her father that she was ultimately provided for. Think about that for a moment. It was when she willingly let go, forgot about what she could not see, but focused on who could see her and obeyed the voice of her father. That's when she was fully provided for. Jehovah Jireh, God our provider. Is there anything that's holding us today, anything that we're holding on that we won't let go? What is our Isaac? Is it our careers? Is it our relationships? Or is it our possessions? Is it our plans? Is it a child? Is it a parent? I declare today it's time to put it all on the altar and give it to God. And he will provide what provisions we need. I'm not implying here today that our possessions are all bad and we should get rid of them. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that we have to be careful that our possessions don't possess us. So much so that we focus on the blessing and not the blesser. We focus on the provision and not the provider, Jehovah Jireh. Whenever we have an Isaac that we've lifted up, God will eventually ask us to sacrifice it because he wants us to trust in him and not in the gifts that he's given us. Abraham was willing to praise God and give up that which was most important before he saw God's provision, because he was determined to do whatever it is that God said he was going to do, that he needed to do. He was determined to worship the blessor and not the blessing. Trust God to provide our needs. When you do, you will find him to be your Jehovah Jireh. Jesus challenged his followers not to be anxious about what they would eat or where, even where they would live. If we put him first, all these things will be added unto us. Matthew 6:33. Theologian Hudson Taylor was famous for saying, When God's work is done in God's way, it will never lack God's supply. When God's work is done in God's way, it will never lack God's supply. God is our Jehovah Jireh. Our focus should be on the provider and not the provision. May God bless and keep you today. That is our prayer. And as always, should you have any questions, please feel free to inbox me.